Okay, so picture this. You finally have the quiet, the space, maybe even, the motivation. You sit down, ready to start something you genuinely love. Maybe it's writing or painting or even just finally sitting down to meditate. And then what happens? Your hand freezes. Or suddenly your phone seems incredibly interesting. Or, you have to clean out that inbox right now. It's urgent.
Mm-hmm. That feeling is so familiar, isn't it? That sudden wall.
Exactly. And we usually just call it procrastination, right? Maybe feel bad about it, call ourselves lazy. But what we're exploring today in this deep dive is this idea, this paradox really, that the deepest resistance often comes up around the things that mean the most to us.
Yes. And maybe we can stop calling it laziness, just for this exploration, and instead try reframing that resistance. Not as some kind of personal flaw, but maybe more like a mirror. A mirror that's actually showing us something important, showing us where we're stuck, perhaps.
Okay, a mirror. I like that. So what are we hoping to see in that mirror?
Well, the mission today is really to look closely, using insights from psychological traditions that focus deeply on self-awareness. And the core idea we're playing with is this. For the part of us we might call the ego, the part that wants to stay safe and defined. Meaning itself can feel, dangerous.
Dangerous. How so? Meaning feels like what we want.
On one level, yes. But think about it. When you approach something that truly matters, something deeply meaningful, what does it ask of you? It asks for your presence, real presence. It asks for vulnerability. It asks you to integrate something new. And doing that, it requires stepping outside of the established story, the safe story of who you think you are right now.
Okay, so that familiar self, I know. It feels threatened by the act of creating something meaningful.
It can, yes. That self-preserving identity, it kind of senses its own potential dissolution, or at least a major change.
Right.
And its defense mechanism just kicks in. Resistance, delay, distraction.
So it's less like a solid wall I need to break through and more like a guard at a gate, trying to protect something.
That's a great way to put it, a guard at a gate. And if we want to understand what it's guarding, maybe we can use that metaphor of the lotus flower.
Oh, right. The lotus that grows in the mud.
Exactly. It doesn't bloom by avoiding the mud, does it? It grows through it. It's fully immersed in it and somehow transforms that murky stuff into beauty.
So our resistance, that's the mud.
Maybe it is. Maybe it's not an obstacle to conquer, but the very ground we need to engage with, the fertile mud, the threshold.
Yeah, threshold. Okay, so if we're standing there feeling stuck, what's the first thing guarding that threshold? You mentioned the illusion of later.
Yes, later. That feels like such a comfortable place to live sometimes, doesn't it?
It does. Later I'll start. Later I'll really commit. It sounds like patience, almost virtuous.
But often it's a very subtle kind of aversion, disguised as patience or preparations, like the comfort of having potential, without the actual burden of putting it into action.
So it's a safe fantasy land.
In a way. And, ancient psychological maps, they talk about the obvious cravings, like for pleasure or for things to be a certain way. But they also identified this shadow craving, the craving for non-engagement, the desire for delay.
A craving to not do something.
And deep down, it's often not really about wanting rest or comfort. It's usually fear. Fear wearing a mask of desire, like, I desire to wait until the conditions are perfect.
Okay, if it's fear, what's the real fear? Most of us would say, I think, that we're afraid of failing, afraid it won't be good enough.
That's definitely part of it, on the surface. But the fear often goes much, much deeper than just performance anxiety.
Deeper how?
It's often not failure we fear most. And maybe, surprisingly, not even success in the conventional sense. The deepest fear might actually be about revelation.
Revelation? What do you mean?
Think about it.
Yeah.
When you fully engage, when you pour yourself into that meaningful act, you risk dissolving the identity you currently hold, the identity of the one who hasn't started yet.
That identity feels safe because it still holds all possibilities.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's untested. It can be brilliant. It's flawless potential. The moment you actually act, you start to become something specific. You risk revealing yourself not as the potentially brilliant creator, but as a human being trying, maybe even just ordinary.
Wow. Okay. That hits. So when I find myself scrolling on my phone instead of writing, I might actually be protecting this image of the me who could write something amazing, rather than risking being the me who is writing something, okay, maybe flawed, but real. That fear of just being ordinary, that's powerful.
It's incredibly potent and often unconscious. So that moment when the urge to delay hits, the invitation is to pause and maybe gently ask, like you said, what am I protecting right now? Is it that image? Is it the fear of imperfection? And noticing that brings us into the next phase of this, looking at clinging, specifically clinging and the fear of expansion.
Clinging, right. We usually think of that as, clinging to possessions or relationships or wanting a certain outcome. Upadana, is that the term?
That's the term. But the insight here is that we can cling just as fiercely to inaction.
Clinging to doing nothing. How does that work?
We cling to the fantasy of the perfect moment, the perfect conditions, the perfect self who will one day just be ready.
The I'll do it when I'm ready trap.
Exactly. But readiness? It isn't really a destination you arrive at after enough waiting or preparing. It's more like a choice you make right in the middle of the uncertainty, the fear, the not knowing.
Like the stories of the Buddha under the Bodhi tree. He didn't wait until all fear was gone, did he?
Not at all. The account suggests he sat down with the fear, with the doubt, with the uncertainty swirling around him. And awakening arose right there, in the midst of it all, not by waiting for it to pass.
There's that Zen story too, isn't there? About the monk who spent his whole life preparing to write one perfect poem.
Yes, purifying his mind, mastering the calligraphy, finding the perfect ink, waiting for the absolute perfect moment of inspiration.
And he never wrote it.
He never wrote it. Because the fear wasn't really about writing a bad poem. It was about writing truly.
And writing truly...
It meant letting go. Dissolving that boundary between the I who is writing and the writing itself, becoming one with the act. And the ego, the part of us that insists on being a separate, fixed self in control, that's terrifying. It feels like disappearing.
Because its narrative, its story of me, stops running.
Precisely. You become the creative energy, not the commentator on it. And this resistance, this clinging to the known self, is a huge source of our underlying dissatisfaction, our dukkha.
That friction, that feeling of rubbing against reality.
Yes.
Yeah.
We suffer not just because we delay, but because we then judge ourselves for it. We add that second arrow, telling ourselves we're flawed, we're broken for procrastinating. And the ego kind of thrives on that. It loves those fixed identities, even negative ones, like I am the one who always starts things but never finishes. Or I am the one who almost started something great.
Okay, wait. You said something earlier that I want to circle back to, that the ego fears success even more than failure. That still feels upside down to me. Why would it fear success?
It seems counterintuitive in our culture. Absolutely. We think success is the ultimate goal. But think about true success in something deeply meaningful. Not just external validation, but the inner completion, the transformation. What does that demand?
Change. Growth.
Integration. If you actually complete that meaningful work, if you embody that creative act, you have to become someone new. You have to live as the person who has created, who has transformed. And that means the old self-image, the comfortable potential self, the one who hasn't started yet, it has to die.
It's an identity death.
Exactly. Delay, procrastination. It's often the ego simply trying to avoid that death of the familiar self. Even if that death leads to expansion and fulfillment, the process itself feels like annihilation to that fixed identity. Sakaya, the view of a fixed, permanent self.
Okay, that lands. So if this resistance is this deep internal defense mechanism, like a ghost writing its own death, as you said, then just trying to push through it with willpower probably won't work long term.
It usually doesn't. Or it creates a different kind of tension. We need a different approach. Not fighting the resistance, but maybe befriending it.
Befriending the thing that's stopping me. How?
Well, this brings us to the next phase. Thinking about mindfulness as a kind of alchemy.
Alchemy. Transforming lead into gold.
Something like that. Transforming the lead of resistance into the gold of awareness or insight. So when that urge to distract hits the phone, the email, the sudden urge to clean, instead of immediately fighting it or giving in and feeling guilty, what if we just paused?
Okay.
Just for a breath. And notice. Observe the feeling itself. What's actually here? Is it fear? Is it a kind of fluttering anxiety? Is it overwhelm? Shame? Just notice it without rushing to fix it or push it away. That pause, that simple noticing, creates a little bit of space.
Space between me and the feeling.
Exactly. And in some mindfulness traditions, there's a practice of simple mental noting. Just silently labeling the experience. Resistance, or fear, or thinking.
What does the labeling do?
It sounds simple, maybe even simplistic, but that act of witnessing, of naming what's present without judgment, it gently loosens the grip of identification. You start to see, I am not the resistance. I am the awareness that is noticing the resistance. It's happening within me, but it isn't the entirety of me.
Okay, so I create some distance. I'm not consumed by the feeling. Then what? Does the feeling just stay there?
Sometimes it might linger. Sometimes just being seen, just being acknowledged without struggle, allows it to soften or shift on its own. But the real alchemy happens when we stop treating that inner state, the fear, the doubt, the resistance, as an enemy or an obstacle.
And see it as raw material.
As energy. Think about it. Fear, when it's met with awareness, what can it become? It can become sensitivity. Heightened attention. Doubt, when it's not suppressed but allowed, can become discernment, wisdom. The energy isn't destroyed, it's potentially transmuted.
That feels like a huge shift, like reframing procrastination not as a failure, but maybe as a messenger.
Exactly. I love that metaphor. Instead of shooting the messenger or barring the door, we will maybe open it just a crack and ask gently, okay, what is it you need me to know?
And the message might not be, you're lazy.
Rarely is, I suspect. The message might be something quite intelligent. It might be, hey, you're trying to rush this, slow down, or you're actually really tired right now. You need rest before you can create, or this part of the project feels overwhelming. Maybe break it down.
So the delay isn't just weakness, it could be a kind of unconscious intelligence trying to get my attention, seeking better alignment.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Intelligence seeking alignment. And approaching it this way naturally leads to more self-compassion, doesn't it? Less judgment.
Yeah, it does.
There's even a practice derived from traditions like Tonglen, where you can work with this directly through the breath. When you feel that resistance, that urge to avoid, you can intentionally breathe in the associated feeling, the fear, the shame, the sense of unworthiness, whatever is there. Really let yourself feel it just for a moment.
Breathe in the difficult feeling.
That sounds hard.
It can be intense, but it's an act of radical acceptance. You're not trying to get rid of it. You're acknowledging its presence. And then on the out breath, you intentionally breathe out kindness, warmth, acceptance towards the part of yourself that is feeling that fear or resistance.
Breathing in the fear, breathing out kindness to the fear.
Towards the self that is afraid. It's a profound way to meet yourself right where you are.
That feels incredibly different from the usual internal battle. It really shifts the whole perspective. It makes you realize maybe you don't delay the things you love because you're broken or flawed. Maybe you delay them because you're actually whole.
Tell you more about that.
Well, wholeness includes everything, right? It includes the fear, the doubt, the tenderness, the uncertainty, as well as the love and the desire to create. It's just that the ego part, the guard at the gate, hasn't quite accepted that wholeness includes those vulnerable parts yet. Wants the good stuff without the messy stuff.
Beautifully put. And that leads us right into the final phase, which is really an invitation. An invitation to presence.
Presence, not perfection.
Exactly. With that thing you love, the writing, the art, the practice, what does it truly demand of you? Does it demand perfection? Does it demand you feel totally ready and fearless?
No, I suppose not. When I really think about it, it just asks me to show up, to be there with it.
That's it. It demands your presence. Just your simple, honest, maybe even trembling presence. That is the entire demand. There's a profound insight in some traditions, like Dzogchen, that suggests all phenomena, everything that arises in our experience, including the impulse to distract, including the resistance, is already free. It's self-liberated the very moment it arises, if we meet it with clear seeing, with non-judgmental awareness.
So the resistance isn't inherently bad or an obstacle, it's just arising energy.
It's just what's arising in this moment. And you don't need to be perfect to begin or to continue. You only need to be here, now, with whatever is present. The fear is here.
Okay.
The fear is here, and you are here with the fear. You are the space holding it.
So for you listening, the practical step then is what? When that resistance comes up next time?
First, maybe don't condemn yourself. See if you can welcome the messenger, even just slightly. Ask that gentle question. What is this protecting? What intelligence might be here?
Okay, ask the question. Then what?
Then, perhaps with gentle courage, do one small thing anyway. Just one tiny step.
Not to conquer the resistance.
Not necessarily to conquer it, but maybe to act alongside it. To simply say yes to showing up for your life exactly as it is in this moment, resistance and all. Open the document, write one sentence, play one note on the piano, sit for 3 breaths on the cushion. That's it.
A small act of presence.
A small act of presence. And in that moment, something shifts. The ego, that guard at the gate, it might not vanish, but it often softens. It starts to move from being the master demanding control to maybe becoming a servant of your deeper intention.
And you realize maybe you weren't really delaying after all.
Perhaps you were just circling the sacred space, gathering the courage needed to step across the threshold. Maybe the resistance wasn't a brick wall. Maybe it was just a thin veil shimmering with misunderstood energy.
Wow.
And if we zoom out just a bit, connect this to the bigger picture. Maybe the ultimate act of courage isn't about finally conquering the fear so we can create.
What is it then?
Maybe it's about being willing to create alongside the fear, letting the fear be there like a companion on the journey without letting it drive the car. The fear doesn't have to disappear for you to act. Your willingness to be present just needs to become slightly larger than the fear.
So wrapping this up, what does this really mean for you, the listener? For me, it sounds like it means the real you right now is actually already enough. It's even with the uncertainty, the avoidance, the messy bits.
Yes, absolutely.
And the path forward, the path to engaging with what you love. It doesn't start when you finally feel perfectly ready. Because maybe you never will feel perfectly ready.
That's often the truth, isn't it?
It starts simply because you're here, now, and what you love isn't waiting for some idealized, perfect version of you. It's waiting for the real you, the present you, messy, vulnerable, and all.
That's the heart of it. But perhaps. One final thought to leave you with, something to explore.
Okay.
What if the real work, the deepest transformation, begins not when you finally manage to create the thing, but when you finally stop needing the act of creation to prove that you deserve to exist or that you're worthy of love in the first place?